There's a new PlayStation 5 rumor suggesting a retro controller could be coming to the platform.
And now we're gonna completely destroy that rumor.
Hot take.
It's not a controller.
So we saw a new patent being published on November 28th, 2019 in the United States showing a really basic, simplistic square controller. And some people have decided to run with this and say this is a new retro controller coming out for the PlayStation 5. There's even some beautiful renders showing what this could mean with the traditional buttons and some kind of screen in the middle. But Detective Shane here caught something in the patent which suggests very much otherwise, that this is not news at all.
Yeah, so I've read a couple patents now. The image you're seeing there, that was from Let's Go Digital, and they actually created a 3D mock render. The actual patents, though, look a little bit different because they're a little bit more simplistic. You would look at that and think, boy, that looks like a Game Boy Advance without a start and select button, and you'd be correct. It kind of does look like that, but there are some issues here. If you look at the patent close enough, you'll notice that there's a name on there of the person that filed the patent. That person's name is Ken Kutaragi. If you do not know who Ken Kutaragi is, he's essentially the father of PlayStation. He was one of the earliest people on the PlayStation project. Actually, he was involved in the original Nintendo PlayStation, from what I'm to understand. He's been there for quite some time. However, he doesn't work at Sony anymore.
And hasn't for a while.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird to see his name pop up on a patent, which was the first clue that something was off here.
Yeah. Now, if you take a look at the bottom, you can see that originally this was a foreign application that was patented back in 2006, or at least filed in 2006. This is not a new patent. This is an old patent that is being refiled again and again. In fact, if you look at the application data section that's highlighted in yellow, you can see that they've reapplied this patent again and again and again. But what does this patent mean? The rumors out there have been that you're going to be using this controller to play PlayStation games of a whole bunch of varieties with your PlayStation 5 account in some way, or some kind of mixture of a PlayStation 5?
I think some people just saw the D-pad and the basic buttons and they said, oh, this has to be a retro controller, which wouldn't make sense because the DualShock controller, the PlayStation controller, never really evolved over time.
Yes.
It's not like Nintendo where you started off, well, every generation had a very distinct, different controller. The PlayStation controller kept evolving slowly. So why would they go to such extreme lengths to get rid of like analog sticks and all that from this controller? It makes no sense.
Yes.
But when you look into this patent, you see a lot of early signs of technology that we saw being integrated later on into portable PlayStation handhelds. So we see that this controller was supposed to connect to your PlayStation at home. So assuming the PlayStation 3, since this was filed in 2006.
Yep.
We're also seeing it able to talk to the cloud so that you could receive like your emails on this thing. So this really looked like an early prototype for something that PlayStation expected consumers to carry in their pocket. They could get their emails, they could operate their PlayStation, or they could do a whole bunch of other things. Now, keep in mind, this device, this patent was filed before really the whole smartphone, like this is before the first iPhone came out, which means touchscreen devices weren't really a thing for your phone specifically. There's a lot of things that smartphones just made redundant. And later this year, so this was filed in 2006, later this year is when we saw the PSP actually get remote play. Is that correct?
That's right. Now, for those of you that don't know, remote play on the original PSP was a way to play PlayStation 3 games directly off of your internet connection to your PSP without actually having to actually use your PlayStation 3 with a PlayStation controller. I remember this feature being very popular when Lair came out because it was one of the only ways you could play Lair without motion controls, which is actually kind of funny, but it worked.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't perfect all the time, but it was a real thing that did exist, and not many people used it, but it did exist. They did expand upon it. You could play that on Vita as well. Remote play is a very renowned feature that a lot of people have talked about on the PlayStation platform or a family of consoles. So it's not this unheard of feature. The thing was, back in 2006, when they were talking about these features, they were a little wild. They were a little crazy. And when remote play came out, it happened to come out, I don't know, in 2006, around the same time that this patent came out. Kind of mysterious, huh?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not an expert on patents, so why is this being published in the US again, like in 2019? Does it have anything to do with the PlayStation 5 or anything? I don't think so. I can only speculate that maybe the patent was coming out and it's just your basic maintenance of having to renew it. Or if you really want to start speculating, everybody right now is talking about streaming. You've got Microsoft with their xCloud. Of course, we got Google Stadia that came out. Maybe there's some technology in this tech that PlayStation is trying to protect, because a lot of it's pretty wordy. Like, this isn't easy reading. It's 9 pages of really technical, kind of boring sentences.
Because it has to be very specific and direct and explain everything that this product could potentially be.
Explain everything, but keep it vague enough not to be too direct at what it is. So it's weird, but it does look like this could be, like, when I was reading this, I was just thinking to myself, wow, this sounds like xCloud. It sounded like the patent talks about a controller that with a screen on it that is not touchscreen, by the way.
Yeah.
That you can play your games on it, that is being processed from your PlayStation at home or potentially in the cloud. So all of this could coincide with the fact that everybody's talking streaming these days, and PlayStation's probably just trying to keep a hold of their patents, or maybe there's a bigger play here. I don't know. It's all speculation at this point.
You know, that's really what I believe we're seeing at the core here. You're seeing a technology that is still likely being used by Sony to this very day. They still use remote play, folks. If you have a PS Vita, you have the ability to use that. So there is these pieces of technology that are still being utilized, and this patent is vague enough that it could actually be kind of used to save themselves in the future for a variety of other situations, possibly against a Stadia type of thing, possibly against a Nintendo doing something similar. It doesn't really matter. As long as they have the patent and they keep the patent alive, it shows that they are actively using it and stuff like that. However, even if you don't believe all that stuff that we just said, dismantling what this could possibly be, let's just talk about the thing that this entire rumor is based around, which is a retro controller to play PlayStation games. Now look, folks, I don't normally say that ideas are stupid, but this one is really, really stupid. First off, the patent doesn't actually show enough buttons to play any PlayStation game, period. Like, look at it. It's missing a select. It's missing a start. It's missing the secondary trigger buttons, right? All you have here are 2 shoulder buttons, a D-pad, a square, a triangle, a circle, and an X. That's it. And the majority of the games you would find on the original PlayStation, all of them utilize all those buttons plus more. Now, there are some games that were released on the PlayStation in Japan that utilize simplified controller layouts that had unique controllers developed for specific games. I do know of these things. However, there simply wasn't enough games to warrant making an entire platform based off of. What you're seeing here really can't play any PlayStation game, even PSP, PS Vita, anything. This system here could only theoretically be used to play older systems like the NES or the Sega Master System, because there's enough buttons on there. You couldn't even play Super Nintendo games on here, because even for Super Nintendo, it still doesn't have enough buttons.
And I don't know why anybody would want to play on something so uncomfortable, specifically if this was for the PlayStation audience, which is used to having that DualShock feeling. How could you even sell something so ugly and so basic? And like, this looks like it would cut my hands open. I know it's not, it's just a concept and all that, but it looks like it's made out of aluminum or metal with sharp edges that would just dig into my palms.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's right there. That's the Let's Go Digital people trying to figure out what it is. Because unfortunately, all they have to work off is those really like poorly designed patents that are basically establishing an idea. For all we know, what you're seeing there is just a concept of a game device being used to access the services that Sony was trying to establish everything on. I mean, this right here, one of the funny things is, to my original look at the patent, what I was seeing there literally looked like, here is a device that does these things. It's not, this is the device we're selling. This is, here's a potential idea of what it could be. It's literally a car with 3 tires. They're not trying to sell you a car with 3 tires for the purposes of the patent to prevent other people from seeing the patent to steal their future concepts for products. They're literally just trying to show off something that gets the idea across.
Yeah, and we've seen this a lot. Patent talk is very popular around the time when a new generation of console comes out. I've lived through the Nintendo Switch's NX days where every other day you had a new patent. There was this one thing that looked like a Stewie grip or like a football or Stewie grip.
I remember that one, yeah.
And that was what the patent looked like. But and then some people, did the 3D printing. They had me going there for a while.
Yeah.
But Yeah, with this thing, it's just, I don't know. I was more interested in the service, you know, what it could show up on the screen. And the patent has quite a few figures that goes through that of activating like your TV with it, checking your email, all stuff that, you know, you could do with your phone. And it's not really exciting in 2019, but in 2006, it would have been a pretty cool thing. Now, to do any kind of retro games, like you were saying, you can't play any of the necessarily old PlayStation games, but would it even make sense if you had a third-party market which is making specifically new, really old retro games and you want that old feel? It's not worth it. You just go with like a 8-bit do controller or
You
something.
go, the Switch does that already. You know what I mean? Like there's ideas here at play that don't make any logical sense. Like look, folks, if Sony were to, I mean, just take this. If we knew nothing else, but all we knew was this, as a retro controller, they literally just showed off a controller that can't play any Sony game. Okay, like none of them. Why would they ever do that? Like, what would be the purposes of that? Remember, that patent is not showing enough buttons, period. Now look, with the PlayStation 4 controllers, there are like PlayStation 2 games that you can play on there, and because there is the share and menu button, right, those are not start and select. So how they go across that is the touchpad in the center, the left is select, the right is start, or whatever it might be. It might be a variation or mix of that, but it gives you those abilities in the center there. That's how they fixed that. That's how they got around that. You would not look at this and go, oh, yeah, I could play PlayStation games on that. The only person that would ever look at that and think I could play PlayStation games on that is someone that has never looked at, touched, or played a PlayStation game in their entire lives. This would not work for anything. What we do know, though, is that going into the next generation, we've heard rumor upon rumor that the PlayStation 5 might actually have backwards compatibility of features, whether they be downloaded games or whatever. And the reason they're capable of doing that is, unlike Nintendo with the Switch, they actually have a controller that virtually looks identical to the last controller they released, which looks identical to the last controller they released, which looks identical to the previous controller. Like, it's just, that controller doesn't need a retro version. It already is a controller that looks close enough.
So I don't think this is going to be the last rumor that we're going to see until PlayStation comes out and says, this is the PlayStation 5, this is the controller, this is what it does. We're going to keep seeing a bunch of these. This one likely was easy enough to debunk, but we're going to be keeping our eye out for other rumors and looking into them and letting you guys know what we think about them.
Absolutely. Folks, what do you think about that patent we saw? As we know, we've probably debunked it enough for all you out there, but what do you think it could be used for? A fridge, button, control, car starter, some kind of weird card game, and that's just the box for it? Let us know what you think.